Hello, my name is Dean Takahashi. I'm here at the Xsolla booth at the Game Developers Conference. I'm the lead writer for GamesBeat at VentureBeat, and I'm here with Chris Hewish, who's president of Xsolla. Welcome, Chris, and tell us a bit about yourself and Xsolla.
Great. Thank you, Dean. I appreciate being here with you. So I'm president of a company called Xsolla, and we are a B2B company that helps game makers all around the world go direct to consumer by increasing the revenue, the reach, and the relationships that they have with their players. And we've been in business for almost 18 years now, working with a number of companies throughout the industry, from the biggest all the way down to small indie studios. And Dean, I appreciate your time today.
Yeah, thank you. So this is a very energetic GDC. There's something like at least 27,000 people here in person again, compared to just 12,000 last year. And I wonder if you've caught some buzz about where the game industry is.
Yeah, absolutely, Dean. Yeah. And you're right. This is it's a packed GDC. Talking with the organizers, they were saying it's back to how it was pre-pandemic, and the energy has been fantastic. And there have been a number of things that we've heard people talking about. Two of the big ones. One, obviously, is generative AI. Everybody is talking about that and the impact it's going to have. And the other thing we've heard about is this continued trend of direct to consumer. And what I mean by that is the trend of companies going direct to their players to transact with them, to build the relationships. And really, what does that mean for the current ecosystem where you have the platforms and now you have companies that are expanding beyond the platforms? So two kind of big topics that are pretty exciting.
Yeah, I mean, both of them seem to sort of play into the theme of the democratization of the game industry. With generative AI, we might have sort of one-person bands, able to do a lot more than they used to be able to do because of generative AI, or a 10-person company doing even way more than you would expect them to be able to do, right? So it's very exciting.
It really is. I mean, I love that concept with generative AI of how it can empower the solo creator, but it also really opens up the opportunity to bring together groups of creators with complementary skill sets, just like you said, how a band comes together. And you may have a few people good playing instruments, someone's good at writing lyrics, another person's good at writing the music, and bring it all together and you create something amazing.
Yeah. And as far as how Xsolla sort of plays into some of this trend, like are there some good metrics you guys have on the business that you can talk about?
Absolutely. Yeah. So, I talked about the other exciting trend or topic of direct to consumer. And over the past year, we've seen this really take hold in the mobile space where a number of mobile game companies are now building these hubs online where they're able to connect directly with their players outside of the App Store. Not bypassing it, using it to build out their audience. But what we're seeing there is some companies are generating 40, even up to 45% of their revenue through these online web shops. They're seeing incredible engagement from players that visit them. Up to 80% of the visitors actually make a purchase. We're seeing the average number of purchases on a web shop monthly. The average is 5 per visitor, and then 35% of those visitors are doing 10 or more purchases a month. So it's absolutely amazing. And one of the reasons for that ties back to this democratization of gaming from a perspective of opening the business up globally and making it the ability to pay or engage with a game that you like, really making that global through alternative payment methods, just through different distribution channels, and just being able to access a broader audience.
Well, it's an interesting trend there that you guys have visibility into that is kind of like under the surface, something that doesn't get a lot of eyeballs or attention, but, there's a layer of business happening there that maybe nobody knows much about, but is really keeping a lot of companies healthier at a very tough economic time, right?
Exactly. And this is something I've been talking about, that we're in kind of if you look at the boom bust cycle of everything, could be argued that with fears of a recession, there's a bit of a bust cycle coming. which means companies start to think about their margins much more. And that leads them to looking at other ways to grow their business. And they found that, hey, if you get that direct relationship, that really helps, right? Players feel they're getting more value from the games they love because they're connecting with the game makers directly. And then that benefits on the other end through more revenue.
And you guys have a fair amount of activity in cloud gaming, which has sort of been on the edge of the game industry for a long time, and now it's producing some results, I guess. But can you talk more about that?
Yeah. So cloud gaming, I know that's had kind of a mixed reception over the years, but we really feel that it is a great technology. And if you look at it as a tool versus a replacement for a platform, it really opens up some opportunities. So we've taken a look, we've talked with a lot of people who, were looking at cloud and what went wrong, what went right. So we've offered a new solution for partners where they can have a single point of contact for their players to come in and experience the game that is running through the cloud. But on the back end, we're solving for a lot of the problems that had kind of limited clouds in prior years. And what I mean by that is, in previous years, it was viewed as an all or nothing proposition. You chose one cloud provider and that was your platform, right? And you tried to deploy that globally. Well, the problem there is there's many people around the world that might be too far from servers that cloud provider is using. The experience falls apart. The monetization model maybe wasn't really transferable. So we've created something that allows multiple cloud services to come together on the back end. And as a player that comes to check out your game, they're not having to face like, which cloud service should I choose, which build should I pick. They just log in and play the game, and on the back end we're directing them to the best provider of cloud services with the lowest latency for wherever they are in the world. And then we've thrown a new business model in there as well, where if you want, you could certainly have them buy the game premium or do whatever, but we also have an option to pay as you play now, kind of like the PC, cyber cafes, right? How you would sit down and pay as you play. So this really allows game companies to monetize that cloud business in an entirely new way and offset some of those costs that normally would be a negative if it's a free-to-play game and they're not, you have additional cloud costs and all that fun stuff. But again, it's kind of a tool that can go alongside your existing business to access new audiences, not a replacement for your entire business.
Yeah. Interesting. It'd be fun to see the day come when, there's all these check boxes for game companies, like the mobile version, the PC console version, maybe the movie and TV show film adaptation, but also cloud gaming, right? Like just check off the box and say it's one more opportunity.
And then it can also be used even beyond just a commercial aspect. We also are talking with partners about how they can use this for things like beta testing, right? Which is a big problem for a lot of people, of how do you get builds into the hands of testers? Well, if you throw up a cloud version of your build, you can access as many testers as you want. And you can update it quickly on the back end. You can turn it on and off. You don't have to worry about leaks or anything like that. So again, it's a tool. Had a business model that had some issues that we've addressed with new monetization models. And then it's also had different use cases that people really weren't taking advantage of before.
You should do press tours that way to get.
That's a great idea. There you go.
Press on the cloud, and you don't have to visit 30 cities or whatever.
I like it. We're going to use that, Dean. Thank you.
And then, I guess, was there something about the timing that made it work better now too? Because as we said, there's many things that were missing from cloud gaming in the past, and what makes it better in 2023 for you?
Yeah, exactly. And what's interesting is, I think a lot of people got on the doom and gloom wagon of cloud and kind of celebrated some of the failures. But if you step back and look at it as a market segment, it's actually grown year over year, and it continues to grow. Even though a number of companies have fallen away, there's a core group that are actually really leaning into it and experiencing some success.
And this whole play before you buy, is that playing into the the behavior of consumers these days that
Yeah.
maybe they're more cautious, I guess, or they expect more things for free at the outset, I guess.
I think what it does is it obviously provides a great option for players. I mean, we all know kind of the joke of check out how many games you have in your library that you never actually play that you buy and download. So this is a great way to address maybe some of that. But more importantly, it really opens new markets where you may have players, you do have players in emerging markets, in territories where they don't have quite as much disposable income as a tier 1 market does. And getting them to make a purchase, it's a big impact on their lives. So, if they can test out multiple games to find the one they really, the one game they can purchase that year, right? Then this could really help that. And what's cool is it then helps the overall business because you have people that their engagement with games is better because they were able to get the game that they really, really wanted, right? And they don't have the regret of buyer's remorse and, all of that. And which is really important when you have limited income in a lot of these markets.
And you'll get better sort of word of mouth or better reviews, and
exactly
goodness will flow from having happier
customers. Yeah, better customer experience all around.
And then you also have a telecom initiative that's also new that sort of also seems to feed into this enabling game developers to do more or more democratization as well, right? So.
Yeah, absolutely. So telecoms, these are the big phone and telecommunication companies, the Verizons, the T-Mobiles of the world. And there are over 7 billion users are customers within that ecosystem. And we've seen a lot of interest growing from those the companies. I mean, a lot of interest in gaming and how can they use gaming to, engage with their customers even more. And we've created a solution we call Digital Distribution Hub, which if you activate that as part of your publisher account with us, it allows us to then go and plug you into this vast network of telecom companies, and not just telecom companies, but super apps, banking apps. All of these companies are building their own sort of digital hubs, whether it's online or in an app. And now you can actually get your game in there, your in-app purchases in there, so that people can transact and engage with your game while they're doing their banking or while they're looking at their carrier billing or whatever it might be. And then it also creates a whole new round of marketing opportunities because these companies are going to promote it. So
it's interesting. A lot of those companies kind of got sort of disintermediated, I guess, by the likes of Apple and Google when the big app stores came along, right? And so now you're seeing that they maybe have a chance to come back a bit with their own app stores inside a particular phone maker's device, right? They're really, some of these are really huge, popular, Samsung,
right?
And
yeah, exactly. And they have big customer bases. We're seeing it already where you can, in some of these super apps, you can buy your groceries, you can get stuff delivered, you can do whatever you want. And games are just another great addition to that, and it just really opens up the audience. We've the data that we've done, the research that we've done, talking with telco customers, they say we think about 35% of the telecom customers say that they would happily transact on a game purchase within their super app or on their AT&T app if it's AT&T or Verizon or whatever, right? So if they're presented with these opportunities, it's like we already do other things. We'd love to do it with games too.
And I think the economics seem like they would wind up being much better too. Like you're not necessarily giving away a big chunk to a middle person platform, right?
Yeah. I mean that is certainly a big element of it as well. But we really look at this as, again, it's not an either or, them versus the platforms. This is just a whole new market. It's a whole new opportunity to grow the business while continuing to grow it on the platforms as well. And then it just gives the customer more choice. at the end of the day, that helps everybody.
Yeah. And then, is there something then that just sort of also stood in the way here? Like maybe there's friction with the game developers just not knowing who to go to here. Like, how do you even ask? Like, hey, can I get onto your phone app? I guess, or
Right.
right.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, if you're a game developer, you don't have an army of business development people that are out there looking, having contacts with telcos or banks or super apps or anything like that. And that's part of the service we provide, right? Where for the game maker, you just check off that you want to do digital distribution with us, and then we handle all of the opportunities for you, and you don't have to sort of come back every single time and be like, okay, yes, I need to go get additional keys to do this one type of thing. It just, we handle all of it on the back end for you. And that lets the game makers just focus on making great games and, see their business grow, right? Yeah.
And I guess there's an environment here within the mobile game industry too that to speak to, where some of the context is, they're having a harder time, right? I think mobile games have really had more challenges with things like, the IDFA changes, but also I think the mobile consumers seem to be the ones that are affected by the economic downturn more, right?
Right.
And so some of the mobile game companies are starting to report, weaker results, probably weaker than the PC and console folks, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, a great reflection of that is just how locked sort of the top mobile games have become as discovery has become a big problem. So if you're a mobile game player, it's really difficult to find new, interesting things to play, right? Unless they're getting covered by awesome folks like yourself. But that discovery is a real issue, and it makes it really difficult for companies to. You see it on the PC side where an indie studio can come out, they can start building a community around their game before they launch. They can engage with that community, have a dialogue with them, give them special offers. And that's been really hard on the mobile side. So that is one of the things that these web shops allow. And we're seeing just great benefit from it, not just on a business side, but for the players themselves.
Yeah. So the web shops seem to be also coming up in a very timely way because there's so much call now for open platforms, really,
Right.
and the web shops are really a way to deliver more openness for the different companies that need it, right? Especially in a tightening economic environment.
Yeah, exactly. It's a great way to deliver the content. And the thing that I personally am excited about is it's a great way to build that direct relationship. And, being an old school PC gamer myself, knowing the power of being able to connect directly with the game maker, it creates such an awesome experience for everybody. And, that's what we're seeing. We're in the mobile space, companies are starting to see the benefit of that, of really having that direct relationship. And
so they're also getting that sort of the better feedback, right? There's direct information coming back from the consumer. You actually know who your consumer is for a change.
Exactly.
Like the good old days, I guess. And then you can act on some of this feedback or, change something in the game, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we haven't even touched on the data side of it, but there's so much data that's lost to the game maker, when their players are doing things on the platforms, that is now opened up to them. And then even beyond that, you and I were talking a little earlier about where things are going. And I think this accelerated erosion of a difference between consumer and creator, right? We now have consumers that are also creators for the games they love. And it's really hard to do that within the context of a platform. But if you're going direct, you can now really get your audience engaged in creating and playing and doing all of the stuff.
So we can come around again to some of our top industry trends or buzz here, but definitely generative AI is this big trend, and so is user generated content, right? And I've seen a lot of that at this show. very interesting companies like In-World AI are here. And I think the users creating their own content on platforms is very interesting, but historically it's, they haven't been as skillful at at creating this content as professionals, and that makes a lot of sense. And so I think a lot of their ideas are good ideas, but they don't make it to the end of the execution in the best way. And if you insert generative AI into this picture, and it makes someone who's not a programmer able to program some things, or someone who's not an artist able to create good art for a game, or at least get going on the right track for both of those things, then it feels like they're going to make it to the end of the execution. Maybe you're going to get 10 times more user-generated content out of this. That's an interesting sort of situation to get into.
It is. And you kind of touched on it at the top there. Sometimes you have to ask, is more actually better, right? So the way that, I've been looking at that is generative AI is a great tool to help address the content treadmill issue, but it's not I don't think it's going to replace the creation of hero assets. So you still have your core team creating the hero assets, the primary things, and then the consumer creator can really take that and build out much more content to help with that content treadmill, which may be tier 2 kind of content, but still really important for the game. And then what I would love to see is then the developers are sort of lifting up some of that and bringing it in to the core itself, and maybe using their high-end professional skills to turn some of the user-generated stuff into that hero content. And but yeah, I think it just helps people stay engaged. At the end of the day, it's going to help your fans stay engaged with what they love. And if you're a super fan of a game, you're not necessarily going to be turned off by a little dip in some of the content, right? If it's allowing you to stay engaged in the game that's becoming bigger and more rich for you.
Yeah. And some of the hit games, it's interesting that some of that user-generated content comes out in a year or two and really keeps the game going. But it would be interesting to see if that kind of content could be there on day one,
right?
And that it could really help the game take off in the first place.
That would be awesome. I mean, then that opens up a whole world of the consumer creators who are becoming kind of game makers, or people may follow different makers within the game. If the developers open that up even pre-launch, and maybe they use cloud services to get it out to people to start generating content early, or whatever it might be. But yeah, I think it really is going to cause developers to question what is it that they're building, right? And what tools are we putting in place to allow for this, right? Not just something that happens after the fact. And then how can you pull all these people in? I mean, you already have developers pulling influencers in early to create content. So yeah, why not makers, right?
Yeah. And it feels like, if you guys can offer developers enough ways to make money in different business models, different ways of monetization, they don't necessarily have to get into a fight with their own users about who gets to keep some dollars.
Yeah, exactly.
related to the game here. And so, if you're sort of spreading out the business opportunities, then for sure you can share some with the users.
Yeah, it's a really good point. If we can provide a wide variety of ways to monetize, then that whole process and the relationship between developer and creator, player and developer, creator, all of that is not going to be defined by the business model, right? So if we can kind of open the model up, I think hopefully that would allow for much more creativity in how people collaborate. Yeah.
And then I guess you got to work on those discovery tools too, since we're going to have 10 times or 100 times more games. We gotta get to the right ones better.
Yeah. That is another hot topic, and we're working on that side of it a lot as well. But I think fundamentally, one of the best discovery tools is start early and find your audience, develop a relationship with them. Don't hide behind a wall and, keep everything secret. But we see this in the indie dev scene a lot, where they get out there and they just talk to the potential players and build up an audience that way, which is a great form of discovery.
Yeah. So by way of wrap up, anything you want to summarize for us about what you're seeing here at GDC?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, it's awesome to see everybody back. I mean, just personally, I've run into people that I haven't seen in 10 or more years, right? It's not just the people coming back after the pandemic, but really seeing people who may have not been to a GDC in a very long time coming back. And I think that's because there's so much excitement around new things. Generative AI has been a very, very hot topic here. And so I'm really interested to see how that impacts, as you said, the democratization of gaming, the workflows, the skill sets, the ability for collaboration. So, yeah.
Well, thank you. Very, very awesome, Chris.
Thank you, Dean. I appreciate it. Always a pleasure.
Thank you.